Hello, we are back in Planet Coaster today, continuing on the main entranceway into the new themed area that we're trying to get away from the pirate theme. Though, in essence, what I'm finding is the more I use this tile set, the more, and I'm more prone to just build pirate theme anyways, naturally. I don't know if that's just the tiles or that I've just been building that kind of item for so long that at this point it's kind of a comfort zone kind of problem, but we're gonna try and work through it anyways. We rounded off the little village from last episode with another new structure, and then we are placing a bunch of trees and shrubbery. Now the cool thing in the way I do shrubbery might be a little bit different than what you see in most video games, is that at the edge of a forest or very heavy woodland area, what you're going to run into is just basically a wall of green. And that's because, you know, you're going into trees, but the lower levels you have a bunch of shrubbery and kind of 6 foot tall-ish bushes that are just sticking out. And then once you're inside the forest, it goes away. And that's just because the trees block the light over there. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking when I'm laying out a lot of the tree areas on the map so far. Here, this is the bulk of the episode, and it was a big pain. But I think it was worth it. It's quite a detailed kind of structure, a lot of little layers and things, but essentially what we're going to construct this episode is the main, I guess you could say, wall / gate into a lost city kind of area. So it's going to be kind of overgrown, and we'll see pretty much how this turns out. So essentially, we're using 2-layer thick walls, and then I'm also trying to work in as much kind of little details as possible, because people who lived in, like, you know, tribes back then who did a lot of stonework, i.e. like maybe the Aztecs or Mayans, their not castle walls, but their town walls were, one, relatively short in relative size comparison to, say, like a castle wall in Europe, and then also they were very detailed. I mean, they were just art pieces in general that either like told history of something, and so that's what we're trying to do here. I'm trying to get enough layers to show how well, I guess, they relief sculpt their walls, and so that's what we're doing here, throwing in pretty much every object that I can find that can fit in some sort of way. Now the only problem is these plaster walls are, well, they're too smooth, because this would be rough stonework and things like that, and I'm using these castle pieces kind of turned on their ends here to get that gray kind of large block. You can actually angle them a little bit so you get kind of the seams and joins where they actually put the blocks together. But in my opinion, I probably could have used some more, something to keep it even a little bit more gray. And then after I built this flat section, I realized, well, why am I going to build the whole wall when I can build just a part of it and then copy and paste it around? Because Planet Coaster's awesome. It lets you do that kind of stuff. I don't have to go through the tedium of constantly tweaking things on each individual wall piece. So I went ahead, deleted the other sections, and we are just going to try and get this taken care of as much as possible. So trying to use as much of these, I guess, the marbly kind of stone, and then also trying to work in some gray stone where we can. We don't really have many pieces for that, but that's something I'm trying to do. Now, a problem that we're going to run into is that if you plan to do a copy and paste piece, what I suggest doing is put down the foundation of that floor and then move that object somewhere. Move it anywhere. It just needs to be moved. And because in doing so, what you do is essentially actually center the whole structure onto a grid. Because when you're placing just a building down, what it does, it goes to the terrain level first. And then it might not match the grid level that you're using from copy and paste, which is very annoying. I was running into that here, so you can see I'm very confused as to why my heights aren't adding up. And then I said, well, screw it, I'll raise it up by a unit and then just add these slabs at the bottom to kind of cover up the ugliness that was there. And so I think it worked out. Not definitely ideal, but I think for what we had, I think it was an okay solution. It allowed me to put a little bit more gray in there anyways. The top part we're going to try and keep stone, because their walls, of course, were all stone. And the way they actually had kind of a stepped roof, we don't really have any blocks or building materials to do that quickly and easily. So I went ahead and made them slabs. And then we're going to go ahead and connect them, make them a nice peak. And we'll add actually this little kind of flat top on it, almost like a walkway in the middle here later. Having some natural terrain elements come in. And then at this point I'm like, well, if it's supposed to be a lost city, let's go ahead and make it look a little overgrown. And so I start, feeding shrubbery and tree branches up the building and inlaying it a little bit and trying to get it basically to look like it's slightly falling apart at this point. We're also going to be copying out more of the wall. This is a couple hours of footage, by the way, so just trying to put those wall elements together was kind of a chore, but I think it's worth it in the long run, going into that much detail. And then, of course, at the end, we're going to do a skip so you guys can see everything. Over here, a little bit of dead space, put a boat that's kind of torn in half. Just something to fill the area. Maybe to tell, this place is really overgrown, it's lost to time. At least that's kind of the thinking I have. Here is probably one of the first roof sections, which is, I just put down the flooring. I moved it first this time, so I know it's going to line up every time from now on. And then, knowing that there's so much white into this thing, I used a lot more of the gray brick technique from earlier to try and just bring more kind of layers and texture breaks as possible. Of course, gonna have some stones on this side, and then luckily, because it can be old, I was worried about the corner and trying to get that all to line up, and I was like, well, why not just make a little mound of rocks, because it's old, and who says it has to be perfect? They probably built it into the terrain anyways. And I'm also kind of waiting for the terrain tool at this point, because that would have helped so much with a lot of this park, as we are building on steps. Getting the gate kind of measured out, and then we're going to do a rock faced gate here, and we'll also put a skull on it to kind of make it look a little bit more Indiana Jones, So I think it turned out rather nice in general. Over here, just even more detail going in, as much as humanly possible. The game right now is still running relatively okay. I think we get about 15-20 FPS. I mean, for the first stage alpha, which I'm sure will get even better as we go on. And then, of course, I don't know if you guys saw the live stream today for Planet Coaster, but Alpha 2 looks amazing. Like, everything that they're doing to pathing and, the new coasters. I think there's going to be like 14 total different coaster types now. 3 new flat rides to use, which would be great. Painting, pathing, and terrain sculpting. Like, they made Mount Rushmore with that thing, and it just looks amazing. So that's the base template for the upper walkway, and I think at this point you guys pretty much know the basic build process, so I'll go ahead and just skip to when it's all kind of shiny and done. So I hope you guys enjoyed the speed build today. I'll go ahead and give you kind of a close, nice look of everything. Here is the nice skull entrance into the next area, kind of going to be the Lost City element of things. Now, I didn't have to use a skull here, so I think my girlfriend was talking about it might look a little too piratey, but we'll see. Maybe I might have to do something a little bit more different, but to me, I'm thinking more Indiana Jones kind of stuff here. Now, probably one of my coolest thing or favorite things about this wall is, one, it looks overgrown and slightly, you know, old, but the nice thing is it's still clean, and I wanted that just because of, you know, what if, you know, the Mayans were still around and they upkept their stuff? What would it look like today? And in my opinion, I think it would look pretty nice, you know. A lot of erosion happened over time, and, you know, the ruins we have now to study are pretty bad shape, but I think, you know, this is kind of maybe what it might have looked like. In fact, I even put some gold inlay in some of the walls here just to make it a little bit more fancy, of course. This is the new hut over here. It's relatively large. It's just a 2-story one to kind of, I guess, greet you as you first walk around the corner there. All the shops, though, are still in the main courtyard area over here. And then we also brought up a lot of the trees to try and definitely seal in your vision, to make it look like if you're standing right here, this looks pretty believable, as if you're kind of walking right into the jungle, with all the trees in the background blocking off the sky to your left and right. Threw in a cage of a skeleton back there, maybe just as a light warning to visitors. And then even back through here, where we added some more trees along the path, I think it turned out really nice. You can see the FPS dropping a little bit, probably in this video, just due to with how many trees and objects there are at this point for our park. Anyways, I think that's enough for me rambling. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you all enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to my channel for more creative goodness like this. Go ahead and suggest things that you might want to see built. Go ahead and leave a comment down below on what you guys think as well, what to tweak, things like that. And I'll see you guys in the next video.